It's like the athletic department putting pictures of coaches up on the wall and saying who's the ugliest, who's the dyke. I mean, and you know, when a jury of people see that kind of thing, they're not too happy about it. 2007, University of California, Berkeley, there was a swim coach, and so there was a case there. 2007, San Diego State, another swim coach was fired, or contract was not renewed after she complained about inequities in men's and women's programs. We had, in 2008, Florida Gulf State University, the women's golf coach and the women's volleyball coach won a lawsuit charging the university with retaliatory discrimination because they claimed about sex discrimination in the treatment of men's and women's athletic programs. Now, you're noticing in a lot of these, I'm not saying sexual orientation, but it's used as a secondary part of the lawsuit. So we do talk about it when I talk with you guys. That's always right there. It's always right there. And usually it's a huge reason why if somebody complains and they have short hair and tennis shoes on, they get fired. I don't have on tennis shoes today, so nobody can fire me today. Okay, 2008, Mesa College. That was one of our cases where the head basketball coach was fired because she brought her kids to practice. Now, of course, the tennis coach, the men's basketball, I mean, everybody brings their kids to practice. It's no big deal, but she got fired. That went to a jury also. I mean, and here you've got your college administration, you know, just buckling down and not wanting to talk to your settle about anything. So you end up in front of a jury. That was actually really a fun one. Belmont College in Nashville, Tennessee, fired their very successful soccer coach, Lisa Howe, after she told her team that her partner was having a baby. So that was a huge case. University of Minnesota with Katie Brenna, the golf coach here. That was a big case. You know, she was definitely fired because she was lesbian. I mean, even in the hiring process, they didn't hire this one woman because they said she looked so much like a lesbian. They didn't hire her. Then they hired Katie, who's really cute and had long dark hair, and they were just shocked. I'm talking about the coaches that hire them. Were just shocked when they did find out she was lesbian. 2013, University of Texas. 2014. And this is, what the heck is going on in Iowa? That was the big headline at ESPN, written by a person there. What the heck is going on in Iowa? So the field hockey coach was fired. A senior associate athletic director, who was her partner, was moved out of the department and somewhere else because they said she couldn't be fair. Of course, they could have just not had her in on those conversations. So that stymied her career, and I think she was one of the people who might have been an athletic director over a football team because she's had that kind of training. Then I think we also have to say, what the heck happened to University of Minnesota Duluth? And that's my quote. Oh my God, you know, you've got a coach that's fired because she makes too much money. You know, you've got the softball coach, the basketball coach, both fired, basically. So, and there's a lawsuit going on there, and it's the same attorneys that got those millions of dollars at Fresno. I mean, if I was Duluth and just looked at what happened at Fresno with these attorneys, you know, I'd just say, hey, what do you want? I'll give it to you. Because now that's going to be ongoing, and that's a case to really watch carefully. Now, one of the things that happened at the University of Iowa case, besides just a lawsuit from the coach, is that the athletes themselves did a Title IX complaint because that coach was fired. So that was huge. Okay, so I think I've kind of, you know, quickly run down some things that are happening and why this explosion is what it is. The legal cases can get the publicity and be an educational tool around the nation if we are able to strategically make that happen. You know, in other words, NCLR itself, if we have a case with either athletes or let's say the junior college we worked with, we will set a strategy for that media and what's going to be said and what the points are and then work it that way. If any of you ever represent people in this area, you can use sports strategy to really help the case. So I think in wrapping up, we have talked about what is the explosion and what's that impact. The impact is positive. The impact is negative with some backlash. So we want to get into the explosion where it's all positive. And we'll get there. We'll get there someday. The pink cloud doesn't last forever for all these people coming out. We have to know that. And we have to know and learn from the pioneers and the past people what has happened with them, what's happened with those past cases. That's absolutely critical. So, what can you do? Make sure that the legal parts combine with the policy and use the policy, forming a policy in a very friendly way. I can help you do this policy. Here's a policy that's worked in 15 states. Would you like to see it? You don't just say, here, take this policy and do it. You ask them. You do it in a friendly way. So that's super important. I think the other thing you have to know and you have to not be afraid of is to really kick ass. You have to. I mean, in the places, and I even think of Houston here, we have to come up with a new strategy to be able to really kick butt with them, with that strategy that was used to make that happen. But you have to be willing to go the friendly way, but then when it doesn't happen, you've got to know how to make them really scared. And you can do that because you can scare them with media and with legal. Media sometimes is scarier to sports than the legal stuff is. So I think with that, I'll kind of close my talk and see if you all have any questions. I didn't give you a whole lot of legal details except to talk to you about the cases that were happening. The trend from that case is those are great coaches, great women coaches that have been around for years, coached Olympic players and Olympic teams, and they will probably never coach again because that's what happens with that. So we're seeing a kind of a calling out of great women coaches so that they can hire younger coaches for less money, which shows how these schools think about women in athletics. And like I say, that's Duluth, that's Iowa, that's happening right now. It's very disturbing, and we're all trying to get together and sort of figure out what can really stop that from happening besides, and we have to do the lawsuits and making them pay big money. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it's going to be for the next few years. Thank you.
For questions, so some questions.
Helen, you mentioned about a lot about these historical cases that we've learned from in the current trajectory. What is your hypothesis about what those lessons say about what these current cases are going to lead to? What's the next, 3 to 5 things that we're going to see happen on the legal landscape and on the policy landscape in the next 5 to 10 years as a result of this trend?
Well, what we're going to see in transgender and what we're doing right now is that we end up with individual athletes in high school athletes in different states that want to play and they're not able to, and so we're going in and those are going to be lawsuits. I mean, we're actually actively going into states that are very discriminatory, trying to find the athletes that play so that we can really turn that around. So we're definitely going to see that. I think we're going to see a continuation of lawsuits from women who are getting fired. And it's very evident when we can tell that it's sexual orientation very specifically, even if they say, you know, you make too much money and we need to, of course, they went back on that, but we can definitely tell when they're putting signs saying Dyke on coaches' doors. So we're going to see more of that because coaches didn't know before they had a way to do that. Now, at NCLR, we do everything pro bono. So, you know, we make sure these athletes and these coaches get what they need. Even if we're working with an attorney in another state, we try to really not let it be cost prohibitive. In men's pros, you know, Chris Cluey's case was a straight ally that was, you know, very positive about gay marriage. You know, there's controversy as to whether they fired him because he was at the end of his career or whatever, but, you know, it really doesn't matter because his coach said to him, take all the gays, put them on an island and nuke them. You know, so when you have that kind of statement, you can certainly have some lawsuits defending allies or even fans that stuff happens to. So I think we're gonna keep seeing that kind of legal action.
More questions?
Oh, I know somebody's got another question. Yeah.
So we've been talking, and you talked about the media and, you know, harshing on people with lawsuits and scaring them. What do you think, though, about the compromise? You and I have talked about the ability of groups to come together and find a way to live in peace. And I get the idea of harshing on the other side, but the compromise, you know, would need to break down first, I think. So what's the possibilities for compromise?
Well, I think my job, because I'm not an attorney, is to actually make compromise happen, because I can get in the door. I'll use one example, the All 50 projects that Aaron and I are both on, which is trying to get equality for transgender student athletes in all 50 states. Sometimes we have a little trouble in the South. Though Virginia and Florida both have great policies. So they meet regionally, and what I'd like to do is go to the Southern Regional meeting, talk to them, but bring the executive directors from those other places and let them be the ones to present. So I think that's one of the ways that I think compromise is totally important, especially if you can get 5 or 6 states at one time and have the conversation. Now, where it would go, we'd have to see, but at least to start the conversation, to get the fear out of there, and to get them to stop thinking about bathrooms. Can't you think about something else?